Good morning, I'm Dilip Thakur, editor of Education World.
Good morning, I'm Sonia Yasmin, managing editor.
So, in our second issue of the year 2024, we've done a story with a difference. We talk about what's wrong with education and how to right it. And for the first time in a long time,
We've asked an education practitioner, an expert to write on this.
an outsider and not a run-of-the-mill journalist like ourselves. So perhaps they brought a fresh perspective to the cover story.
Indeed. We'll tell you more about our cover story later in our broadcast. But let's begin with telling you what else we've got in store in our February issue of Education World. So starting with our editorial section.
Let's start with our big ad for the Thambay Group, which is based in the Middle East, which shows that Education World is going places and is being respected not only in India but in neighboring countries. So we expect some of our own universities and schools which are in blissful ignorance of the existence of our magazine, perhaps to give us some to wake up and give us some support in terms of
Indeed.
subscriptions and if not advertising.
Indeed.
Yes, right. You were saying
Yes.
editorial.
Yes, I wanted to talk about our editorial section this time, and I think we've written some very important edits this time, Dilip. The first one is on the Ram Mandir, which has recently been, consecrated in Ayodhya, and very importantly, we tell teachers what they should teach
And what they
about
should
the Ram Mandir to their
yes,
students.
and what they should leave out of their lessons.
Yes.
We believe that everyone should respect the Supreme Court's judgment in this matter because that's our constitutional schema. We can keep on arguing. The argumentative Indians can keep on arguing about it, but ad infinitum. But at some time, we have to apply a closure and follow the judgment and respect the judgment of the Supreme Court, and that's what our editorial is about.
Yes, and in the second editorial, again a very important edit on an issue of national importance.
Where we've criticized the Supreme Court.
Yes, we criticized the Supreme Court
mildly
for not initiating judicial reforms.
Yes.
And of course, in our education news section, again, very informative and interesting education news from around the country. From Delhi, we write about the release of the ASA 2023 report, again, a damning indictment of our education system. And this time, Philip, the ASA 2023 report looks at students in the 14 to 18 age group, teens.
Yes.
Usually it focuses on primary education. This time it focuses on learning outcomes of students in this age group 14 to 18, and unfortunately the findings are not very encouraging.
Very depressing.
Yes, almost half of 14 to 18-year-old students can't read
class 2
texts, so which is very depressing. We talk about the report, possible solutions.
Mind you, this is in rural India mainly. Yeah, but rural India is very important because the majority of our population lives in rural India.
And we've got an interesting story from Maharashtra where we talk about how some very well-known schools are operating without recognition certificates, and how the BMC is coming down hard on them. It's a very interesting education news. And in Karnataka, we write about the
one second. The BMC is coming down hard on them, irrespective of the fact that parents and others are sending their children routinely to these schools. So, who knows better, the parents of children or the BMC?
Anyway, in our another education news which we filed from Karnataka is on the coaching industry. Recently, the Union Ministry of Education, Higher Education Department came with some guidelines for coaching institutes against the backdrop of rising suicides in Kota,
stress on on children, and the drill and skill, arduous drill and skill regimen of the coaching institutes.
Yeah, but again, we say that these guidelines seem to treat the symptom and not the actual disease, the actual problem.
Yes.
So again, some insightful suggestions there in that education news.
And and of course, a usual story from West Bengal, where education being severely neglected. Anyway, you can read about it in the latest issue of Education
Yes.
World.
Young achievers, again, two very bright, inspiring stories of a student who's a social innovator, and another student also who's doing something about environment conservation
And
plastics pollutions in the seas.
in the oceans, yes, indeed. Uh, there are many young achievers who go unsung in this country, and you don't get these kind of stories anywhere else except in Education World.
Yes.
That alone makes it worth reading. Rajiv Desai, who's written an expert, the well-known former media advisor to Rajiv Gandhi, has written an interesting, contrary kind of story to our editorial on From Mosque to Temple, an Indian tragedy.
Coming to our cover story, like Dilip said, interesting, insightful cover story written by
Sridhar,
Mr. Sridhar Rajagopalan, who's the founder, co-founder, and chief executive of Educational Initiatives, an innovative educational firm. And in this story, he very rightly, I think, diagnoses the problems of Indian K-12 education, starting from rote learning, poorly trained and qualified teachers, etc. And most importantly, he gives some very important solutions to these problems, Dilip, looking at successful education models in Finland, in
UAE, Dubai,
UAE,
yes, indeed.
etc. So this story is very important because we need more debate on what's wrong with our K-12 education system, so that many voices of innovation can come forward, and we can look at how we can reform the system, not keep on doing the same things again and again.
Or having, yes, the same old discussions over and over again. Then, of course, we are the only magazine that writes about international, what's happening in education around the world. So we have stories from United States, the amazing surprise resignation of the president of Harvard University after only a few months in office, and other stories from France,
Yes.
South Korea, which wants a lot of it. They want international
Yes,
students.
because there's a glut of private universities. They're not able to fill seats.
Yes. Teacher to teacher, again, we've got some outside experts, including a lady from uh, uh, Ms. Badri Paul from the Silicon Valley, consultant, and Rajesh Mehta is a Bombay, Delhi-based consultant who write about the future of work. Very interesting.
Yes, and this our February issue also has Education World India Preschool rankings. So the grand jury, these are the Education World India grand jury preschool rankings, where
Which are different.
Yes, which are different from our rankings, from our popular perception poll. So here the grand jury rankings were decided by a very eminent grand jury led by Mrs. Fatima Agarkar, who's a well-known
Yes.
early childhood education consultant and a very
Again, this
well-known.
is a practitioner's point of view and
Absolutely.
rating, as opposed to the popular parents dominated
Yes.
poll that we've also done about for preschools.
Yes, that was published in our December issue.
Yes.
In this issue, we've got the preschool grand jury rankings across some very important parameters of early childhood education, such as health, nutrition, and safety, social emotional learning,
Yes.
etc., which are not parameters in our survey
Which we
published
did
in
in
December.
yeah, which is the popular survey,
Yes.
where we take a much larger respondents database.
Absolutely. So,
So-
we recommend that you check this list out. We've got the top 10 India preschools
Under-
across almost 10 parameters of early childhood
yes.
education.
Best
excellence.
technology integration, health, nutrition, safety,
Yes.
design thinking leaders, social and emotional learning. Yeah, indeed, very, very interesting. Then,
And
Then,
two, I think, off the beaten track book reviews.
yes. One is romance stories written by Muslim women published in women's magazines.
Yes.
Phenomenal popularity, but among Urdu readers, but unknown to most of us. Yes,
Yes.
so a
And
good
the second
review.
one is also a very, I think, good book review on rural realities.
Yes, rural India gets very little
Yeah.
attention. And by the way, you can look out for a story on rural India in our forthcoming issue in February.
Yes.
Yes, we're talking about this agitations, farmers' agitation.
Yes. And coming to our most read page, the Postcript.
Yes. Well, we've ventured again to give advice to business tycoon Gautam Adani. Then we've looked at Mr. Gautam Singhania, who's not a very good ad for the Raymond Man. And then we are also wondering on this page, we wonder why, despite Ram Rajya having been started in India, there's so many people who are very anxious to still leave the country.
Yes.
It's a curious paradox.
Yes.
Anyway, that's our Education World
Well, February issue.
February issue.
Yes. So we highly recommend that you read it, connect with us, join the debate on how to improve India's education system.
Because believe it or not, we are way behind many countries. And unless we address the human resource development problem in India, we are never going to become a developed country.
Yes.
No matter what economists, political leaders, and others say.
Yes. And in our parents' world, before we go, a very, I think, relevant and timely story on what parents can do to help children during the dreaded exam season.
Yes, true.
The board exams are going to start in a day, and several final exams of also of schools and students. We tell parents how you can create enabling, supportive home environments so children can give their best.
Yes.
There's lots of advice from psychologists, counselors, starting from how to eat right during exams to how to help children de-stress.
De-stress, indeed. Other interesting stories also, which 6 reasons why your child might be lazy, which is a description I suffered in my childhood. But this gives you a very interesting reason that actually that your child may not be lazy. And addressing child skin problems. An interesting article for parents who have ADHD, how they should manage children.
Yes.
Well,
so that's it.
Yes, I think interesting fair coming up. Already produced for our February issue. It's all been sent out, and if you haven't got it, please subscribe. In my opinion, you shouldn't do without these magazines.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.